All right. Our next speaker is a global thought leader in AI, and to introduce her is Leah Savina, the lead UX designer for AR and VR at Google. Come on up, Leah.
Appreciate it. Great. Hi, everyone. Aloha. It's a no-brainer that we need to invest in marketing. But if you're stuck marketing to older generations or to the generations you've been marketing to for years, future is being built elsewhere. Our next speaker is a powerhouse in marketing, known for pushing platforms into new frontiers. She used to be the global head of marketing at Twitter, and she led the historic transformation of Twitter to X, bringing in over $5 billion in revenue. Who can say that? That's astonishing. At Twitch, another iconic Gen Z platform, she expanded the platform beyond gaming into music and entertainment. She's a fierce advocate for women and underrepresented communities in tech. She's a mentor, a trailblazer in AI, and an expert in connecting to Gen Z. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Katie Penn.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Mahalo and hello. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. Good morning. I'm here to talk to you about next gen, how to engage with that next generation of audience. Who here considers themselves Gen Z? Raise your hand. All right. And my Gen Alphas, I had two, but they left. Who here is a Gen Alpha? Right, because you should be in school if you were, but okay. So let's have a little warm up. Who here thinks they understand Gen Z and Gen Alpha? All right, we've got one who asked for the talk. Right, so let's play a little game to warm up and see how well you know them by trying to speak their language. So next slide. All right. We're going to check ourselves. Raise your hand if you understand what these terms mean. And I'm going to call on you. Riz. Okay, I'll call someone up close. You. Charisma. Charisma, perfect. Woo. Skibbity. Okay, someone in the back. Go ahead. Okay, but skibbity toilet means absolutely nothing. Sigma. I'll take a Sigma guy there.
Yeah, it's like as opposed to alpha, or it's kind of another tier.
Right. It's not Greek, but it is another tier. No cap. Okay, your partner in crime.
No cap means that no lie.
Right. No lie, no cap. Drip. Take the green in the back. Right, your style. Strip. Have a drip outfit on. And chuggy. Does anyone know chuggy? It's dog food and... Okay. The truth. Outdated, right? Like me. Outdated. Chuggy is now chuggy. It's out of style. You don't use that word anymore, is what I was told. Okay, so I am clearly not Gen Z or Gen Alpha, but as mentioned, I'm someone that's worked on platforms that have spent a lot of money and a lot of time trying to reach the next generation of audiences. And I actually have Gen Z and Gen Alpha in my house, right? So I have one Gen Z and two young Gen Alphas. So I have that view of both being a parenter and a marketer trying to reach that audience. And I'm fiercely protective of them and really, really care. So I love that they asked me to do this talk because it was fascinating to spend more time researching a generation that's in my home. As mentioned, I spent time at Twitter back in the day. Then I went over to Twitch for 4 years, and then I went back to Twitter and got to experience what happened there. We'll save that. I didn't lead it. I got to experience it. We'll save that for the cocktail hour and any of the crazy stories you want to hear. But why should you care? Like, why should you care? You're running your business. You've reached your audience. You're growing with millennials. Why should you care about the power of Gen Z and Alpha? Well, they're already representing 40% of the consumer market. They're spending $450 billion. That's their spending power, and that's growing. And they're highly influential in their own household. So Gen Alpha is actually influencing decisions of their parents, right? And so I would say, like, before you put them in a box and say, I'll wait, make sure, especially with the agility of being a startup, that you're considering this audience as you put together your growth plans. And, one thing about when you're thinking about it, hold on to these preconceived notions. There's a lot that we have. Remember that they're complex. Let's think about where they're coming from. Grew up during the pandemic, born with phones in their hands, unfiltered access to social media, which will hopefully change soon, and already being exposed to AI tools. So where we might think that we understand them, I feel like there's a different way to look at it. So I might look at my kids as lazy. They think they have the hustle mentality. Addicted to their phones. No, Mom, hyper-connected. Short attention span. Super processors. That's how they see themselves. Too sensitive. Emotionally intelligent. Apathetic. Purpose-driven. Socially awkward. Socially conscious, and they're creators, not consumers today. So it's something to think about as you go into this. Let's just, for a moment, let go of those preconceived notions and go into it with an open mind. Mackenzie calls them true gen. What does true gen mean? It's actually a search for truth, authenticity, and individual expression. If millennials, which a lot of you in the room are, were the me gen, growing up in prosperity and all about yourself, sorry, don't know if that's necessarily true either, this is the true gen, right? Where they're actually searching for truth and really doing deep searches or trying to understand what's happening. They call them the identity nomads, right? So that might be that they're going in different ways to express themselves, and they're reshaping the way brands need to approach them versus the way they did with millennials. So I might be a little aggressive here, but I would say, how should you approach it from a marketing perspective when trying to reach this audience? Burn it down, right? Like, kill that traditional strategy that you used to have. Brands need to change their mindset from these static planning, big campaigns, releasing once, and embracing the way that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are absorbing the moments, right? That things are happening organically and emerging very, very quickly. Because they are identity nomads. I love this example. So they actually have, here's a paradox of this generation. They may be eco-conscious and saying they only buy clean makeup. And at the same time, they're doing TikToks on how to apply fake lashes on the weekends. They are okay doing both. Oh, I don't know what happened there. So yeah, and 84% say they need to share their values with the brands that they use, right? And 6 in 10 feel connection with the community that's also identifying with those brands. But don't hear it from me. I love doing research on this. I actually asked on LinkedIn, like, hey, Gen Zs out there, like, what do you think are preconceived notions about yourselves? And I love this quote from Kai, a UCSB student. He said, marketers show the parents' perception of Gen Z instead of connecting with us directly. We have diverse interests, but hate being spoon-fed products by corporations. Brands using slang without context comes across as cringe. So I thought, when I read that, I was like, that's awfully familiar. That feels like me when I was a Gen Xer, right? So they may be, if you can take yourself and put yourself back in being 19, it may be not that different, but what's different is where they're coming from, right? What did they grow up in versus us, and how do you reach them because of that? And when I say it sounds familiar, I remember when we all thought, don't put us in a box. We are the criminal in the basket case and the athlete and the princess and the brain. So as you can just like touch in as you're building your business and understanding, hey, I am you and you are me, you've just grown up in a different time. You're going to be able to authentically reach them in a way that's powerful. Okay, so let's go into the war stories. So here is a company that got it wrong. Back in 2013, I was working at Twitter, and there was a wonderful product called Vine. Who remembers Vine? Woo, yay. Who created a Vine? Thank you. Well, for those that don't know, Vine was this innovative product that created 6-second looping videos that actually like spun the creator economy. It was amazing and made overnight stars who are now YouTube stars today or TikTok stars. And Vine's growth was astounding. Let me move it over. Yeah, it was the top mobile app, grew over 400% in 9 months, 3 times the size of Instagram at the time. See, why isn't it here today? Well, this is kind of like why when you're building your companies, you should think about the future. I was at Twitter, we'd just gone public, our stock was in the shitter, we were having problems, we needed to get hyper-focused. So we were like, we are a real-time news organization, right? We're here to provide real-time information and content. Well, what wasn't Vine? It wasn't real-time, it wasn't news, and so it was really left to dry. We had 40 people working on it. There was no For You like TikTok. They were manually curating the content. And we just decided to divest and think about it later. So there's a saying out there, in memory of Vine, which crawled so TikTok could fly. So why does this matter to you, right? The innovators and startups in the room, it matters because I would say don't underestimate what your future generation will need. If you're only focused on today, you may be letting go of a gold mine, RIP Vine. And so why did I call this talk about attention? This is about attention because most of us grew up in what you consider the information economy, where the currency was access to information. Right? Well, this has changed, and it's shifted to the attention economy. So what is the attention economy? Well, now information is abundant and completely available to us. Think about it. In 24 hours a day, the amount of content that we are receiving is overwhelming. In fact, the average person experiences 4,000 to 10,000 ads in a day, which astounded me. Back in the 70s, that was 500. But you know what hasn't changed? Attention, right? So now, although you're getting all that content, what is considered the capital now is getting people to pay attention to it. And for Gen Z, who've only known a world that's overwhelmed with this content, their ability to filter the content is highly sophisticated. And attention isn't valuable, it's extremely difficult to capture. Let's see, sorry. Oh, my poor slides. So who is owning it, right? Well, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are owning the attention economy itself. They're the ones that are spending 74% of their free time online, 8 hours a day. That worries me tremendously as the parent, but as the marketer, I get it. That's where you're gonna find them. And their primary sources aren't the primary sources we were used to in the past. They're getting their information from YouTube and TikTok and user-generated content. So those are winning the attention game, those platforms and the people investing in that strategy. And I would say that because of that, the traditional marketing funnel is dead. right? Instead of a linear path of one-time touching, bringing them into a funnel and converting them, it's now more of an infinite loop of exploration, inspiration, and community. And they're methodical. Remember, they're the true gen doing the research. They're not impulsive consumers. And so 70% of them feel like they may see something that you're putting out there, but then they need to do their own research, see if they have an affinity with their brand, see if they can find community before they make that buying decision. So community is now essential for your business success. 54% of the brands favor brand. 54% of the community favors a brand that's creating the community. And what's really important, I think very valuable for Hawaii, where a lot of your investment is in this, they consider if a brand doesn't have a POV and a purpose and an identity, it's considered inaction, right? So brands that they consider having values, they're more willing to invest in. So I'm going to go into a time of my career where I joined a company that really got community, and this is Twitch. So are people familiar with Twitch here? Great. How many people go on Twitch? All the guys? Oh, yes. Okay, a few. So I joined Twitch. I clearly wasn't a gamer at the time, but what I loved about it is how much they resonated with the community that used them. And this is one that really, really gets Gen Z, right? So Gen Z and Gen Alpha make up 75% of the people on Twitch. And in terms of community, they understood it right away. They connected the creators, which were the gamers, with the community. They were able to make a living and give them micro currency and money in terms of supporting them as a living. And they're actually really spent time engaged. In fact, 70% of people on Twitch aren't on the other social channels. Why? Why are they not? Because a lot of them are young males. Some people ask, why did Amazon buy Twitch? Why do you think? To get into gaming? No. They didn't tell us. In my opinion, they bought it because they wanted to reach an audience they couldn't reach. Amazon was making a lot of money and stability on Prime. What was the one segment they could not get to convert to Prime? Men between the age of 18 and 24. Where could they find them? On a platform that had built a community for them. What did we launch? Twitch Prime, where they were automatically subscribed to the community that they followed. And oh, how sweet, they also got an Amazon Prime account when it worked. So the lesson there is building your own community can be a very, very valuable resource as you grow, especially if you're looking for businesses to buy you. I was in charge the end of my time at Twitch of finding new audiences, so hence this talk, right? Growing different audiences. We're going after sports. We thought that was just a great tangent. Our audience for Twitch, live streaming, gaming, competition. But what happened? The pandemic hit. Everything closed. And we had a moment in time where we realized, hey, we have a platform that would work for musicians. So what did we do? We launched an all-weekend program called Stream Aid. It was raising money for the pandemic, and it brought all these musicians on to onboard on Twitch and expose their music to the community of Twitch and other, bringing in new consumers as well. But what we found is that it stuck. It didn't stick with the live musicians. They went back to their shows. It stuck with DJs. Now there are 15,000 DJs. They're on Twitch regularly, making a living, finding a new audience, and thriving. And the lesson there is you may be investing in one community and not realize that there's a moment in time that you can shift or you can grow, right? So it may be emerging generations like Gen Z coming into the workforce or Gen Alpha. It may be AI, like how can you shift to grow your communities and expand beyond your initial reach? And I would say it's a great time for startups. There's an industry disconnect. While marketers are celebrating themselves on yachts at Cannes, getting awards for their best one campaign at the Super Bowl, Gen Z has resonated with those 1,000 pebbles, right? It's not one big campaign. It's the consistent effort in investing in communities and putting out content that resonates with them. So you have a huge opportunity to reshape how you think about it. And there's, startups that are doing it really well because they get that. Let's use Poppy as an example. Recently just sold to Pepsi for almost $2 billion. But they didn't start out that way. They started out with a brand called Mother. Definitely not going to resonate with the younger generation. Probiotic soda called Mother was not something that Gen Z was going to pick up. But they got feedback and iterated quickly and rebranded themselves in bright, fun colors like my deck and outfit, to reach this generation. But they didn't stop there. Then they had a viral moment. The owner put a TikTok video out there, wasn't part of their marketing strategy at the time, just explaining what the genesis of Poppy. That blew up, 26 million views, and she realized that she had to shift her strategy and started investing in social. That social took off, and started with user-generated content, just giving them ideas to share, and then really has now moved over to investing heavily in both micro-influencers and big influencers on the platform. And we know what happened there. So, like I mentioned, content discovery has changed. Social media is now the search engine for this generation, right? And if you look at the difference between millennials and Gen Z, 64% of Gen Z are getting their information searching through those platforms. And I'm really big on AI here, and I have a huge pulse on it. Like, hey, how is AI going to play in terms of search as well? There's some emerging companies coming out where Google might not be the place they're searching anymore. They're searching in their LLMs. So I would pay attention to that as well. And then UGC. Who here has heard the term UGC? Right, not enough. User-generated content. This is essential. So if they're on platforms and they're searching through social, then the content needs to be there. And it can't be those one big campaigns that you're doing once a month. You need your users and your community to be generating the content for you. I love the top stat that 82% of this generation trusts brands that use images of their customers. And yesterday at the talk, I heard a fascinating story about a company where one of the cleaners of the company posted a TikTok of their daily life of cleaning. And that's what went viral. And it wasn't like they even promoted the company. Someone commented in their TikTok, "Oh, who do you clean for?" They mentioned it, and then they had all these signups. Right? So how do you actually encourage this user-generated content? You do it a bunch of different ways. I was writing my gal that used to work for me at TikTok today, and I was like, how do you encourage user-generated content? And you can do it by asking. You can do it by celebrating the customers you have today. But if you haven't built a community, you're not going to be able to reach out to them. And then you grow as your budgets grow. You start doing micro-influencers in the areas you want to reach. Maybe there's a segment of an audience you're after. And so you start, investing in them. And then once you're huge like Poppy, you can have Paris Hilton do it for you. Okay, so I was told I am not the AI expert. I love that intro, but I'm an AI user. I use it for this, deck. I use it for my job interviews that I'm doing right now. And I would say that, how should you think about AI as you think about reaching Gen Z and Gen Alpha? And I would say, hey, if what millennials were for smartphones, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are going to be for AI. I think that they are going to be the ones that are going to be dictating what resonates and what doesn't. And one thing we know is that as true gens, they're searching for the truth. So trying to scam them on the content that you're building or going really generic is not going to land with them. But I do believe that you should be bringing them in as a partner as you build your business and start using AI, because they are the ones that are going to be shaping the future of what works. So they're going to be the early adopters, they're going to be the true gen skeptics, and they're going to push transparency. And I love this. I saw this week. How can you do it authentically? Tinder just did this. And it may not work, but they came out totally transparent on an AI game called Game, right? They're trying to solve a problem for a generation they want to bring on their platform. there's a crazy statistic that like 50% of Gen Z and well, not Gen Alpha, they're probably too young, but Gen Z haven't asked a person out in person, right? They're actually really struggling with dating. So what do? They build an AI product that teaches them how to communicate with the other gender. And it's a game that's helping them. And then what does it do? It's bringing in a new generation, helping them ask people out through AI, and then bringing them onto their platform so they can use it. It's fabulous. So takeaways. Value first, selling second. Create value with your products that really resonate with this audience. Community is the moat for growing. And I think authenticity is your competitive advantage. Okay, I don't have much time. I'm sorry, but we're going to do a few questions. Thank you. I'll move over.
Hello, I'm back. So we're going to do a quick fireside chat, and I'm going to act as a proxy for the audience. And number one question that I think was on everyone's mind when you started, we heard some gasps, some disappointed reactions when you said you're not going to be talking about your time at Twitter. Maybe we could crack open that vault and see if there's an experience or two you could share with us.
I think your question you shared with me was like, what was the most like shocking thing? I mean, I always tell people everything you read is true and more, right? So it's all true. I remember, and like, I came back to Twitter, like, I loved it that much. I was like, I think I'm gonna die. And once I came back, I was like, I'm gonna die here. Like, I love it. This is it. This is my home for the rest of my career. And, you know, a lot of people say, why do you stay? I kind of give it 2 years. The first year was really Elon, and the second year was the new CEO in terms of like the gasping experiences. I think I knew things were, you know, really crazy. Some people were like, give it a chance. He's an innovator. You're going to love it. And I just stayed because I was curious. And I stayed because I loved the platform. I was working and beds were being rolled behind me to build the hotel. And that's when I realized that I had entered a warped reality, and maybe I felt like it was a TV show, but it was true. There were hotels. I asked to be put in that Slack channel. I was like, oh, I want to see people booking these hotels in this office. And so there were things like that. And, you know, it just completely reframed how I thought about work, right? Like I had come from like a very privileged San Francisco spoon-fed caviar experience. And then I was in a very different experience and mindset of how you work in innovative companies. So yeah, there were beds being rolled in. There was a woman with an infant there that I thought was like an engineer that was brought back, but I found out was part of his team and was living there in the office with her infant. It was all true. I'll stay there. I'm a big dear.
Thank you. I hope that provided a little bit of satisfaction to the crowd. So you've seen the rise and fall of so many platforms, Twitter, Twitch, Wine. If you were to bet your career on what is the next big platform for Gen Alpha, what would your guess be?
Well, I wouldn't say it's X. Maybe bet my career wrong there. I think we can't tell, right? Like I would say it's pieces of it, right? Like so many men are on YouTube. Like I listen to podcasts where they actually ask us to subscribe to YouTube because it's becoming polarized right now with one narrative and one audience that they're reaching. But then, you know, you're finding inspiration and creativity on TikTok. So either one platform is going to expand and get it right so they can reach like the community piece and the live interactive piece with, you know, like the actual long form content. So I don't think I could pick. I would just say that like I would look at the components that are really landing. And I think that I just heard that like OpenAI is going to start a social platform. So I think that like there may not be one, but I think that they're going to continue to evolve to reach the needs of the audiences that are emerging.
Yeah, and another opinion that we've heard is that it might not be the next platform, but the next medium. And perhaps podcasts as a format is the next format that will become a social.
I mean, someone brought that up yesterday, and I mean, I'm just like a podcast junkie. I'm the worst. I'm listening to it while I sleep. White Lotus, after White Lotus, every show I'm on the White Lotus official podcast. But I don't know if that's going to be the Gen Z, Gen Alpha path, because what I'm seeing, like the big podcasters already do, is they'll do their podcast, they're making sure they capture with video, and then they're releasing just like digestible short form content of their biggest talking points on social. So I think it's a combination. I think you're just reaching different audiences with different pieces. But for the people in the room that don't have these huge teams to do that, there is a lesson in like invest in one and then take that content and make it super hyper relevant in the different channels that you can use.
Something that you mentioned that I don't think gets enough attention is the boy crisis, right? The communication crisis among young males that don't know how to ask girls out. They don't know how to ask everybody out. And Tinder did one strategy, but I'm curious if you would suggest that a lot of companies out there should perhaps invest also in real life events that are taking people offline and helping them meet better communities?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with AI emerging, I was like, well, I know one job that's not going away, and that's event planners. Like, I was like, my first reaction, because I think there will be like more of a value put on real interactions as people are having AI interactions, right? So there's like a commodity around the human connection too, specifically around boys, since I have a lot of them. I think that the most worrying thing and the thing that companies need to invest in is like everyone built these algorithms for engagement, but what's starting to happen is really alarming is that like they're being like right away being put into one algorithm. And there's just such a separation right now between the young men and the young women because of the algorithms that they're being fed. And so you can even see that in like the change in voting demographics. That is like because they are actually being fed different content. And so I think that probably the necessity for young men right now is to be being kind of brought back into the middle instead of being polarized out there.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so the very last question, and hopefully we can keep it short. If there's one thing that everybody can start doing today or tomorrow coming out of this room, any final words of wisdom or advice?
I mean, for the startups in this room, I would just say, like, start talking to that community. Start bringing them in. Like, value their opinions. Don't be top down. I mean, there are so many young people that are hungry for jobs. Like, give them a summer internship. Let them go free on your social. Trust them, right? Like, if you want to grow and reach this audience, you better have people on your team that reflect the audience that you want.
Thank you so much, Katie. You're a round of applause.